Okay, so let us start. Those who are coming late can join later. So what we did in the previous class was introduced the gradient operator. And the gradient operator of a scalar field. Gradient operator operating on a scalar field is following: operating on a scalar field gives grad operating upon a scalar field f gives me del f by del x times I1 plus del f by del y times I2 plus del f by del z times I3. So I told you, the reason why we come across this gradient operator is because when we have a three-dimensional function, when a 3D function is there, so if you want to find out the differential, that is differential of the function at a point, depends upon the direction. So if you're climbing a mountain, you will see that, if you go to the right, it may be going down. If you go forward, it may be going up. If you are going to the left, it may again be going down, and so on and so forth. So basically, the issue is when you want to find out the differential of a function, do you have to calculate this for every direction? Okay, so the issue is, do you have to calculate it for every direction? What we got the answer was the differential needs to be calculated along three directions corresponding to the basis vectors. In this case, I1, I2, I3. So in these three directions, you calculate the differential of a given function. Then what happens is that the derivative at a point in the given direction B is given by grad f dot B. B is a unit vector in the given direction. So this is what we basically were mentioning about this thing, gradients. And I said that, supposing I give you a function like f is equal to say x cubed y squared z. So this is a function which depends upon x, y, and z. So the grad f of this will be 3x squared y squared z times I1 plus 2x cubed yz times I2 plus x. Oh shoot, what happened? When I stop writing, I don't know why. One second, I will get back to you. So what we will get is, I had taken f is equal to x cubed y squared z, and I had gotten del f, which was actually 3x squared. Sorry, 3x squared y squared y squared z times I1 plus x cubed 2x cubed yz times I2 plus x cubed y squared times I3. So supposing you want to find out what the grad f in at say the point say 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what you have is grad f is given by 2 is 4 into 936 into 4 144. Okay, it is going to be 144 times I1 plus 2 into 8 16 16 into 12 is 192 times I2 plus x cubed y squared, that is 8 times 16 is 128 I3. Now you want to find out what is the differential
times 9.
which one
It would be 8 times 9.
where which tell me, is it coefficient of I1 or I2?
I3.
I3 I3 is 2 cubed is 8, right? And y squared is 9. Oh, 7. Okay, 8 times 9, 72. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so what is the differential in the 111 direction?
Sir,
In the
144
direction
will be multiplied by 3.
by 3, is it? I have
Yes.
not multiplied it.
Yes.
So I have multiplied by 3. Okay. 144 into 3 is how much? 732.
42 4
432.
432
432.
So it is 432. I somehow lost everything. Let me get it.
सही बोला हम क्या?
So this is 432.
Huh?
Okay, so what's it? I want to find my direction B is, the vector B, let me say, is I1 plus I2 plus I3. So normalized value of B is 1 upon root 3 times this I1 plus I2 plus I3. So if you want to find out del F dot B, that is going to be 1 by root 3 times 432 plus 192 plus 72. So this is 264. So 696, right? Equal to 696 by root 3. Okay. So this is what you will get for how you can calculate it. And so this operator is extremely useful because you don't have to calculate the differential in every direction because there are infinite number of directions and there are infinite number of points in a scalar function. So this makes life very simple. Now I go to another kind of a quantity, which I call is, let me look at a vector field. The vector field that I have is, say, a velocity field of water flowing in a river. Okay, so there's water flowing down a river. And what I want to know is, in any particular point in space, if I take a little cube there or any volume element, okay, how much water is entering the cube and how much is leaving. So this is also, you can come across these kinds of problems anywhere. Okay, for example, you can think of lines of force of magnet or an electric field, magnetic field or electric field, and you want to know in a given volume how many lines of forces are actually entering and leaving. But this quantity is, what is it given by? I have the vector field F, okay, and I want to calculate this integral. around a surface, which is F dot dA. A is the area. Okay, so let me draw the figure here. So what I have is some kind of a surface, okay, and I want to know how much is the flow that is going through the surface. Okay, so in order to calculate that, I can actually have to do this integration, right? If I have to do this integration, what I can do is I can, and you see this, because A is normal to the surface, it's going to tell me how much is entering and how much is leaving, because A has a direction as well as a positive and negative sense. Of course, it has a direction as both negative and positive senses. Okay, so now let us see how we can find out that part. So I have a surface here and I'm trying to calculate integral f dot ds. So let me call this integral as I. Okay, so the surface is, the surface is, there's no direction for a surface, so let me not put any arrow here. If it was a curve, I would have to put it. So now what's happening is I can break it up into two parts, right? So I call this S1 and I call this S2. So the amount that is entering in S2 is what is leaving. What is leaving S2 is what is leaving S1. So the boundary that you have does not contribute anything to the flow. Am I right? Okay, because you have a direction for dA. Okay, so this is F dot dA. Okay, so you have a direction for dA, and for the surface S2, the direction is in one direction, and for S1 it is in the opposite direction, and it is, the function is the same at all points except that the direction of dA has changed. So this contribution on the boundary is going to be 0. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay, so I can write down I as equal to integral over surface 1 f dot dA1 plus integral over surface 2 f dot dA2. Okay, similarly, I can subdivide it once more. Okay, each one of them I can subdivide again. So I can keep subdividing. I can subdivide it this way. So I can keep on subdividing, in which case I can write down my integral as I is equal to sigma over I equal to 1 to whatever, infinity, the limit n tending to infinity. Let me also put limit n tending to integral over microsurface Si times f dot dAi. Okay. Is it clear? All I have done is to subdivide it, and then on the distinct surfaces within the outer surface S, there is a cancellation of the flow from one region of the surface to another region of the surface. Okay, so the interior surfaces don't contribute to the integral. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Any questions you have? You can ask me.
So dA is the area vector of the surface.
Yeah.
Okay.
The DI is the area of the surface Si. Okay. Now what happens is, supposing I have the following quantity, limit AI tending to 0, that is the area tending to 0, or rather not the area tending to 0. Okay. Yeah, let me say the area of the surface tending to 0. If I can have this quantity integral over the surface I F dot DAI divided by volume enclosed by the area. VI is the volume enclosed by the surface SI. Okay, because see, for example, initially this was the whole volume, right? So what I was looking at was the whole volume of this entire surface. When I subdivided it, I was looking at smaller and smaller volumes because the surface area was shrinking, okay, of the things. So now, when in the limit AI tending to 0, okay, now limit AI tending to 0, this quantity is not infinity, is well behaved. Okay, so it's this quantity can be defined because there are no singularities. That is, there is nothing in the integral which shoots to infinity as Vi goes to 0. So the integral is well defined, so that as the Vi strings, this quantity integral over Si f dot dai survives to a finite quantity. Okay, that divided by Vi also is finite in the limit. Then the quantity limit AI tending to 0. In 1 second, I'll come. F dot DAI divided by VI is called divergence of F. Yeah, somebody had a question. Was there a question? Was there a question?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Is it clear? All that I'm doing
Sir,
is.
sir,
Yeah.
what is the physical interpretation of the dot product, integral dot product?
Oh,
F
no.
dot dA.
Yeah. See, the integral dot product that I'm looking at, F dot dA. Okay. That is the amount that is flowing out of the surface SI.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So that is the interpretation is the following. I started looking at something that is flowing out of this entire volume.
Yes.
See this entire volume that I have. I was looking at something that is flowing up that one. Okay.
Yes.
That I kept subdividing. And when I kept subdividing it, then I got for a really teeny weeny volume inside my greater this surface area. I had a flow, and that flow I divided by the volume of the surface of the enclosed surface. Okay,
Yes.
because it's a closed surface, right? So there's a volume associated with that. So I'm looking at how much is entering that volume and how much is entering into that volume and how much is leaving out of that volume.
Okay.
Is
Sir.
it clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay. So which means that how much of a flow is taking place through a small volume in the bulk. Okay. That is what per unit volume. Okay. How much flow per unit volume is taking place at a small volume inside the bulk is what this quantity divergence F is. Because you have normalized against the volume. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Clear.
Okay, so I don't have to repeat myself. Okay, so this is called the divergence of F, and this is the, so what divergence F tells me is that gives the flow out of a small volume element, okay, per unit volume, because you are dividing by the volume of the this small volume element, okay, per unit volume at a given point in the vector field. So it is like, you know, you just put some little sensors inside your river to find out how much water has entered that particular sensor and how much water is left. Okay. And then you divide by the volume of the sensor, that is the divergence. Okay. So that is the physical meaning of divergence. And now let me see whether I can do something more with this. Okay. Now what I can do therefore is that integral over surface f dot dA, okay, is equal to sigma over I integral over all the teeny weeny surfaces phi dot dAi. Okay, this is equal to sum over I integral over the point that I'm going to write is the following, that is divergence f into dvi, because divergence f is equal to integral over si fi dot dai. No, it's not fi, it's f is defined everywhere. Okay, f dot dai divided by vi. So all I have done is just this thing divided and multiplied by the volume vi. So this I have written as psi dot dai divided by vi into vi. Okay, and I have taken the limit vi tending to 0. Okay, so this quantity that I have here is the divergence, right? And because that is a divergence, I can write it in this form. So that is to say, integral over S f dot dA is equal to integral divergence f volume. Okay, so this is the area integral. Okay, so you see a relationship between the area integral and a volume integral. So the integral of f dot dA, okay, over any surface is just given by divergence of f times the volume. And this is called Gauss's theorem. Has anyone come across Gauss's theorem?
Yes, sir.
Anybody had known Gauss's theorem in electrostatics? Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So now we can also say one more thing. That is, what is Gauss's law? Like Coulomb's law, you have Gauss's law. What is Gauss's law? Supposing I give a closed surface, okay, and then I calculate the electric field E dot dA, this integral, okay, over a closed surface, and this is equal to
Charge by epsilon.
Is this equal to 4 pi times? If this is equal to integral 4 pi of r times d cubed r, right? For example, you can show this for those who are not initiated into this one. You can show that, for example, if I take a unit sphere, okay, and I have a small charge here, q, then the field is q by r squared, right, on the surface. So this is the distance r, okay, and this is a sphere, okay. On that sphere of radius r, supposing I find out, field dot dA, okay, integral q by r square dot dA, okay, and this is actually r naught, Okay, so this is equal to Q by R naught square into integral over dA, which is the surface of the circle. This is the surface, okay? And what is the surface area of a circle of radius R naught?
Pi R naught square.
That is Q by R square, R naught squared into 4 pi R naught squared, right? You get this equal to 4 pi Q. So Q was the charge inside. So you can actually generalize it, and that is the Gauss's law. Gauss's law is that integral of E dot dA is equal to the total charge inside the system. So what we have is integral E dot dA, okay, over a surface is equal to integral divergence E dV or d cubed R. Let me put it. Volume integral is always d cubed R dx dy dz over this volume element which is enclosed by the surface, and that's equal to integral 4 pi r d cubed R. Okay, or I can say that divergence E is equal to 4 pi rho of R, because the integrants have to be equal, right? Both of them are integration over the entire volume, and both of them are equal. So we can equate divergence of E equal to 4 pi rho of R. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So have you come across this equation?
No, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir.
What is this equation? What is the name of this equation?
Poisson's equation.
Poisson's equation is in a way correct, but in electrodynamics, there is a particular name for this equation. So this is actually Maxwell's equation. Okay, del dot E equal to 4 pi rho. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I have given you a very general definition of divergence is what?
Sir, what is
Yeah.
P of R?
Not P, it is rho, charge.
Rho
charge
of
density.
R.
Rho of R is the charge density.
Charge density. Okay.
See, because that follows from the this thing, isn't it? Gauss's law. E dot dA equal to, so this is the Gauss's law, right? So that gives me the total charge enclosed by the surface, which is charge density times d cubed R. Okay, 4 pi times that, and this is this is a Gauss's law, and any other questions? No? Okay. What is the form of divergence? In Cartesian coordinates. Because what I have given you is just a general conceptual definition of divergence E. But if you want to really calculate these quantities, then you require a form for the divergence in a given coordinate system. And so in Cartesian coordinates, what's the form? So in order to get that, what we will do is the following. We will consider the Cartesian coordinate system. X, Y, and Z. And in this, I will define a volume element. Okay, and is a cubic volume element. This cubic volume element, the sizes are, this is delta y, delta x, rather this is delta z, and this is delta x. Okay, so I have a cube of dimensions delta x, delta y, delta z, and I'm trying to find out how much of the flow is taking place from the flow coming in into the volume in the xy plane at the xy plane at the bottom, and the flow leaving the volume element from the top plane. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying?
Sir.
So I am trying to find out how much is entering through the bottom and how much is going through the top. So for that, I will take representative points at the bottom and top planes. Okay, so these are the points that I've taken. Okay, so this is the top point. What is the top point? Coordinates. What is it? This is xy. This is xyz. So what will be the top point? The top point is x plus delta x by 2, y plus delta y by 2, comma, z plus delta z, right? The point at the top. Because I have taken in the middle of the plane. Okay, so the midpoint is delta x by 2, delta y by 2 in the this thing on the z plane, and z plus delta z plane, it is x plus delta x by 2, y plus delta y by 2, and z plus delta z. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And what is the bottom point?
X plus delta x by 2, y plus delta y by 2, and z.
Correct. So now I am trying to find out what is the flow. So flow through xy plane or in z direction, because this is giving me the flow in z direction, right? So what I have is, so divergence of f in the z direction is what I'm going to calculate, because divergence f is actually divergence f along the z axis. Okay, it's not so it's a z component of the divergence. So that is equal to f of x plus delta x by 2, y plus delta y by 2, z plus delta z, minus f of x plus delta x by 2, y plus delta y by 2, z, yeah, and multiplied by the area delta x delta y. Okay, delta x delta y is the area. Because what we are looking at is this integral f dot dA. Okay, so you have to multiply by the area, and this is what you will get from the z component of the area element. Okay, so let me evaluate that. This divided by the volume. What is the volume of the cube?
Delta x, delta y, delta z.
Okay, so what I get is f of x plus, let me do a Taylor series expansion. And what I'll get for the first term is fx by z plus del f by del x delta x by 2, right? Plus del f by del y del f times delta y by 2 plus this is, I'm looking at the z component, so I have to take fz because the variation is along fz. So I should have written that fz is it clear? I should have taken fz because what is changing is the z coordinate is what is changing from the bottom point to the top point. So because the z coordinate is changing, I'm trying to find out how much is flowing through. So what the function that is changing is the fz.
Sir, the function f describes the flow.
The function f describes the flow, but I can treat it component by component.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So I have delta fz by delta z times delta z. Okay. Minus of fz xyz. Okay. Minus delta fz by delta x by 2. This is plus actually. Plus delta fz by delta y by 2. Plus that's it, because there's no need to do any Taylor series expansion on that because that is one of the points. Okay.
Sir, in the last term in the upper bracket, delta z by 2 will not have.
Yeah, because I don't have delta z by 2, I have delta z.
Oh, yes.
Because
Yes,
it is
yes,
z plus delta z, the
yes.
top point. Okay. This into delta x, delta y divided by volume. So what do I get? You see that the following things cancel. This cancels this.
Del f
This
z
cancels
by
this.
del z.
This cancels this. So what I'm left with is delta fz by delta z into delta z into delta x into delta y divided by volume. And we know volume is delta x, delta y, delta z. So this is equal to delta fz by delta z. Okay, so the volume through the planes perpendicular to the z-axis, the flow through planes perpendicular to z-axis in the volume element is the divergence of the flow, not the flow, it is actually the divergence of the flow, because I have divided by the volume, no, is delta fz by delta z. Okay, so if you did a similar thing for x and y axis, so you could have done the similar thing, for example, for this point and this point, okay, or this point and this point. right? If you were to do a similar thing, then what you would get would be the following. Then we will get for divergence in Cartesian coordinate systems. I can write down divergence F is equal to del F by del X plus del F by del Y plus del F by del Z. Okay, or I can write it as del dot F. Okay, because
So del fx by del x, del fy by del y.
yeah, you're right. So because I can write it this way, because I can write it as del F x by del x times I1 plus del F y del y times I2 del F z by del z times I3. This is grad F, right? This is, sorry, this is the operator grad, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the operator grad is del by del x I1, del by I2, del by del z. Okay. Now, F is given by Fx is a function of x, y, z. 1. So Fy, which is a function of x, y, z times I2 plus Fz, the function of x, y, z times I3. Okay. So when I take the dot product, what I'll get is the following. F is equal to del dot F is equal to del Fx xyz by del x plus del Fy by z by del y plus del Fz xyz del z. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the definition of divergence of F in Cartesian coordinate systems. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Anybody? Any questions? Okay, so if you have a vector field, then just take del dot F, that gives you the divergence of the vector field. Okay. No questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so I got the divergence. So now you see the following, that is the electric field can be written as a gradient, right, of a potential. Why is it possible? Of a scalar potential. Why is that?
Because curl of
Divergence.
electric field is
Part of it.
Because work done by an electric field is a state function. right? Because it's a state function, it has to be conserved, the work done. If the work done has to be conserved, then the electric field must be written as a gradient of a scalar function. Okay, this is what we came to write because we want to make sure that E, which is actually given by Ex times I1 plus Ey times 2 plus Ez times I3. Okay, so we want this to be an exact differential. It's an exact differential if Ex is equal to del phi by del x, Ey is equal to del phi by del y, Ez is equal to del phi by del z. Then you can write down E dot dr is equal to d phi. Okay. This is what we discovered in the previous lecture. Am I right?
Yes.
Is it clear? So because I can write E is equal
Could
to,
you explain the last line E dot dr equals del d phi?
see, what is E dot dr? What is d phi? Phi is a function of x, y, z, right?
Yes.
So d phi is equal to del phi by del x dx plus del phi by del y dy plus del phi by del z dz, right?
Yes.
So, and this is equal to minus of df is equal to minus of this. Okay, so let me draw these things as minus. That's equal to plus E dot dr. Okay, where dr is this vector dx 1 plus dy I2 plus dz I3. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir, clear.
Okay, so because E is equal to minus grad phi, okay, and divergence E is equal to minus del squared phi, okay, and this is equal to total charge in the system, right? Minus 4 pi rho or plus 4 pi, sorry, okay, or we have the following equation, which is del squared phi is equal to minus 4 pi rho.
4 pi
And this
q.
is 4 pi rho is the total charge density, total charge. Q is only when you have one charge.
Sir.
Okay, so 4 pi rho is what I've written. So this is because del squared phi is a function of position, right? Because phi is a function of x, y, z. Del squared phi is del squared by del x squared phi plus del squared by del y squared phi plus del squared by del z squared phi. So that is defined at a point, and you want to know what the charge at that point is. So this is actually the charge density. At the point. Okay. So any questions? Is that clear? Why it should be the charge density and not the charge?
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
initially you were telling something about the conservative field work, and that is why we should be able to write as gradient. Can you repeat that once again?
Yeah, electric field is actually electric potential is a conserved quantity, right?
Yes.
Electrical work done in moving a charge in an electric field from point 1 to point 2 does not depend upon the path.
Yes.
Okay, so electric field can be expressed as a gradient of a scalar.
Okay.
Okay, and that scalar is the potential.
So, sir, in conservative fields, we can express the field as a gradient of a scalar. That is what.
In a conservative field, the work done does not depend upon the path from one place to the other in the space. Field is not the work done. Field is not the conservative. So a conservative field means the work done does not depend upon position.
Okay.
Okay. F
Okay.
dot dr is the E dot dr is the conserved quantity.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So you take a test charge from point 1 to point 2. The potential required to move the test charge from point 1 to point 2 only depends upon the positions of point 1 and 2 and not on the path. Okay. So this equation is known as the Poisson's equation. Have you people come across Poisson's equation?
Yes.
Where?
Yes, sir.
Where have you come across the Poisson's equation?
Electrodynamic.
Electrodynamics, sir.
But how many of you are chemists? Are there chemists in the gathering or there are only physics people? Are there chemists?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
There are chemists, right?
Yes.
Because I don't hear voices saying they are chemists. If there are no chemists, then I will ramp up the speed and also I'll go through topics faster.
Could you go a
Are there
bit
chemists?
more?
No,
Are
sir.
there
We
chemists or
are
no
not
chemists?
Sir, there are only few. I
No,
think there
even
are
if there is one
7
chemist,
to
I'll
8
go slow.
chemistry students.
Even if there is one chemist, I can go slow, but if there are no chemists, there is no reason why I should go so slow.
So we are from larger from chemistry.
Okay, so Poisson's equation. Have you done de Broglie theory of electrolytes?
Yes, sir.
When you do de Broglie theory, you would have looked at the Poisson equation, right?
Sir, for calculating the potential.
Yeah. Then you will also get the screening length. Okay. So that is, you use a Poisson potential. And then when there are no charges, no net charge, del squared phi is equal to 0. This is called Laplace equation. Okay, any questions so far? So you come across divergence, you will encounter whenever there is a flow. So for example, in diffusion problems, you'll come across divergence. Okay. And electrodynamics, you'll of course come across divergence. And like that, you know, in many places you'll come across divergence. Okay, now let me come to another quantity called curl. Curl of a vector field. How do you define a curl? For this, what you are going to do is you are looking at integration of a vector field around a closed path. Okay, so this is not this is a area. This is a line integral. Okay, because you are going through a closed path and you are trying to find out what is f dot ds. So which means the path can be going something like that. Okay. So this is a closed path. Okay. So let me call this as integral gamma equal to f dot ds. Okay, now I can subdivide it, right? as I did in the earlier case.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the way I subdivide it is, I will take another path which goes through this and goes through this. Okay, so this is C1, this is C2. Okay, and I'm going to take the following, that is, this I can actually subdivide. You see, on the boundary between the curves C1 and C2, what you will see is that the integration sense is in one direction, in the upper one, and in the opposite direction, the lower one. And since the function on the points are the same, the integral on that will cancel. And so I can actually write it as integral over C1 f dot ds1 plus integral over C2 f dot ds2. Okay,
Yes, sir.
any questions? So now what I can do is the following. I can keep on subdividing. So I have, so what I'm doing is actually finding out the rotation in a way, when I go through this path, cyclic path, is there a rotation in the field that it gives me a non-zero value? Okay, so I had one division like that, third divisions. I put two directions for the arrows for the this curves simply to show that for the inner volume it will go in one direction and for the outer volume it will go in the other. For the outer area it will go in the other direction, not volume, area. So keep on subdividing so that I have gamma is equal to sum over I, gamma I is equal to sum over I integral for all the closed curves Ci f dot dsi. Okay, so what we are taking is the quantities are following. I have the value of the function here. So let us say that the function is in this direction. Okay, and then the tangent at this point is in this direction. So this is the ds. ds is the tangent and f is here. So f dot ds is actually the inner product of the vector field f with the change in length of the curve ds. Is it clear? It's actually f dot ds. So ds is along the tangent. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now what we will do is, now as before, if the area enclosed by the closed curve Ci is Ai, okay, then curl of f is defined as curl f dot n, okay, because n is the unit vector specifying the direction of the area element. Okay, so this is how you define a curl. That is what you will do is you will take, say for example, this loop, take the integral around this curve, okay, and then you have a surface element here, and perpendicular to the surface is the vector n, normal perpendicular to the surface area element is n, and curl f dot n you define as limit ai tending to 0 of gamma I divided by ai if it exists. Okay, so that I can write down integral over the curve. What did we have? F dot ds. Okay. This is actually a line integral. This is equal to sigma over I, gamma I is equal to sigma over I integral over ci dot dsi, and that is equal to sigma over I integral over ci f dot dsi divided by area element ai, okay, multiplied by area element ai, or that's equal to sigma over I curl f multiplied by ai. Ai is a vector. This is equal to integral over the surface area S curl f dot dA. Okay. Do you see this? What I did?
Yes, sir. Relation between
I have-
surface integral and line.
So this is the definition of the curl, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when I'm doing this integration,
Sir, you are divided
it?
by AI but multiplied by a vector AI.
yeah, but you can look at it as sorry. You can look at it this way. This is modulus.
Okay, sir.
Okay, because the what's on top is also a scalar, f dot dsi.
Yes, yes.
You are dividing it by another scalar. So I've taken here the area is the area of the volume element, that's the magnitude, and L specifies the direction. Okay, because gamma I still is a dot product of a curl times the area element. Any questions? So what is this thing called? So see, when I did the Gauss's theorem, I converted a volume integral, or rather I converted a this surface integral into a volume integral, right? You remember the Gauss's theorem? See, this is the Gauss's theorem, right? That is, I made a change. So you look at this. I have shown what the Gauss's theorem is. You have an area integral is converted to a volume integral. Okay, and here what I have is a line integral is converted to a area integral. So what I have is integral over a closed curve C f dot ds is equal to integral over the surface area curl of f dot dA. This is called Stokes theorem. Have you come across Stokes theorem?
Yes.
Okay, so this is how you show what the Stokes theorem is. Okay, and Stokes theorem in a plane. Say for example, okay, is Green's theorem. How do you get that? So in a plane, f dot ds in a plane, which is xy plane, is equal to fx dx plus fy dy, right? And curl dot f will become curl of f, sorry, not curl dot f. Curl f dot n is equal to curl f, which is a z component, right? Therefore, integral fx dx plus fy dy along a closed loop is equal to integral of curl fz dA, the area in the xy plane. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is called Green's theorem.
Can you explain the curl f dot n giving curl of f in the z direction?
See, what is the direction of the area element in xy plane?
Z
Ah.
direction.
Along the z, yes, yes, yes.
So what is curl f dot n?
Curl of f in the z direction.
Z direction. That's the z
N
component
is
of
along
it,
z.
right? Okay.
Yes.
So that's what I wrote. So this is called Green's theorem. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, now let us try to get a expression for curl f in coordinates in this in Cartesian coordinates. So what I will do is, let us first get it in the xy plane. Okay, so what we are doing is the following. Let's say this is x and this is y, and I have a closed path in the xy plane. Okay, this is x comma y, and this is delta x, this is delta y, right? And I'm going to be integrating this way. So what is going up is positive, what is coming down is negative, what is going from left to right is positive, and what is going from right to left is negative. Okay, that is the sense of the direction. Okay, any questions? Okay, what is curl of f? the z direction is equal to integral along the square, okay, f dot dA, rather ds. I've always used s for length. Divided by, what is the area of the square?
Del x.
Area del x, length into breadth, del x into del y. Okay, so this is actually what I can say is it is f dot ds along bottom line minus f dot ds along top line, because top line is running opposite, isn't it? So that's why I put a minus sign. Okay, and plus f dot ds on the right line minus f dot ds the left line. Okay, this divided by delta x delta y. Okay, in order to evaluate these things, what I will do is I'll take midpoints on each of these lines. Okay, so I'll take these points. Okay, for integration along x and for integration along y, I'll take these points. Okay, so the first term in this will be f dot ds bottom line is equal to the value at the midpoint, which is, and I have to take the x component fx x plus delta x by 2 y z is that correct? F of x delta x by 2. No, what I have done, let me see. This is delta x by 2. So for integrating along the x axis, I have to take the midpoint. So I have x plus delta x by 2 y comma z times delta x minus of f of x plus delta x by 2 comma y plus delta y z times delta x. That will give me minus of delta fx by delta y times delta y delta x, right? Because what is this quantity? This is x at x plus delta x by 2 del fx by del x plus delta fx by delta y delta y. Okay, and this quantity is nothing but fx at x comma y comma z.
Sir, x, y, z minus fx, x, y, z.
Yeah, this has to be x, y, z. That was what I was trying to change. I'll just write it as fx. Okay, x at x, y, z. This makes life simple. So this is fx at x, y, z.
Sir, y plus delta y which point you are taking x plus delta x by 2 y plus delta y and z?
Just a minute, into delta x.
Sir,
One second, I get your point. Multiplied by delta x. Yeah, this one is multiplied by delta x, okay? Yeah, you see, what I am doing is the following. What is the bottom line is at this point is at what point? X by 2, y by 2, comma, z, whatever one, okay? And this point is x by 2, y by 2 plus.
sir, x by 2 y.
No, sorry,
Z.
there's no y by 2.
So y by 2, why
No.
it is y by 2? It will be y.
No, it is not y by 2. X by 2, y comma z, x by 2, y plus delta y comma z, okay? You follow? So I have to multiply by delta y both of them, right? Or rather delta x both of them, right? Because I'm integrating from this point to this point and another again from this point to this point, this function. The value of the function at this point is f of x by 2 y comma z. Okay, x plus x by 2.
So for only the bottom line, we have to consider the point x, y, z and x plus delta x by 2, y and z. Why we are considering the point in the upper line?
Just a minute. You have to, it's a cyclic integral, right? Yes or no?
Yeah.
You have to integrate around, what is it? Along bottom line and along top line, right? You have to integrate both. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, when you integrate along the bottom line, you have to take the value at the midpoint in the bottom line. Yes or no? And multiply by the length of the interval. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so the length of the interval is delta x. Okay, so f of x comma x plus delta x by 2 comma y comma z multiplied by delta x is what I have to do for the bottom line. Right? That is exactly what I have done here. F of x plus x delta x by 2 comma y comma z times delta x. And what is the top line? Top line is fx at x plus delta x by 2 y plus delta y comma z, because this is at y plus delta y. And because I'm taking f dot dA, okay, where A is a line this in f dot ds, which s is a line integral, so I have to take multiplied by the corresponding line. Okay, so f of x plus delta x by 2 y plus delta y by 2 z times delta x, because it is fx delta x. So fx at x plus delta x by 2 y plus delta y comma z multiplied by delta x, okay, is the top integral. The bottom integral is x plus delta x by 2 y comma z multiplied by delta x. Delta x is the length of the interval and the value of the function, which is fx, because I'm taking fx because it is f dot ds, and ds is along the x direction, and because it's along the x direction, I have to take the x component. So I have taken the x component and I have done this calculation.
Sir, I
Okay.
understood for f of d as bottom. Why are we considering bottom?
What is it?
And
Now, what is it?
sir, I have not understood for f of d f bar dot ds bar bottom. Why do we have to consider the down line and the top line?
Because you are doing a cycle, this thing integral, which is a around a closed curve. And you are defining curl or rotation. It's around a closed loop.
Okay. So
And the loop is a square loop that I have taken.
yes.
Okay. So you see, and I was looking at the this thing rotations. You see, I'm always doing closed loops, right?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
Okay,
to
so
suppose
I
the
have to
loop
do
is
a closed loop calculation. And the closed loop that I'm looking at is in the XY plane.
Hmm.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
No, sir.
I proceed.
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
So this is, I should have said f dot ds bottom plus top. Okay. Similarly, if I'm looking at f dot ds left plus right, I will get fx. I have the point x, which is this point. Okay, so this point is, what is this point? This point is x plus delta y by 2, right? And this point is x plus delta y by 2, y plus delta y. This comma y. Do you follow that?
Yes, sir.
Do you follow it or not? Let me write it neatly. X plus delta x by 2. This is the point. Okay, this is x plus delta x by, I've taken x plus delta y by 2, comma. No, sorry. X comma delta y 2. So this point is x, because that's the x projection, comma y plus delta y by 2. And this point is, what is this point? This is x plus delta x. Comma y plus delta y by 2. This point, right? X is here, x plus delta x is coming here, and then you go delta y by 2. So you start from this point, which is x, go horizontally, x plus delta x. The y has not changed. When you come here, it is y plus delta y by 2. Whereas here, it is x has not changed when you go up, y only goes to y plus delta y by 2. Okay, is that clear?
Clear.
Is it clear?
Clear, sir. Clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Clear.
It is clear at least to one person. I'm glad. So this is going to be fx x comma y plus delta y by 2 comma z times delta y, which is the amount by which we are actually moving, minus of fx x plus delta x comma y plus delta y by 2 z delta y. Okay, that is the two integrations that I have. So this is going to give me delta fx by delta a what I have delta fx by delta y. So this has to be fy, I'm sorry. Because I'm moving in the y direction. You see that? I'm moving in the y direction. So f dot y is fy. Okay. So I made a mistake there earlier. Okay. So I have the following, that is curl is equal to del fx by del y minus del fy by del x. I made a sign mistake somewhere. Okay, so this is y comma z times delta x at the bottom line. At the top line, it is y plus delta y. Oh, this is going the positive direction. This is going right. Bottom line is the positive and top line is the negative. So bottom line is positive, top line is negative, and left line is down and the right line is up. So what have I done? So earlier I was correct. Here I have made a mistake. So that the quantity delta fy by delta x, delta fx by delta y, and this is curl along the z axis.
Sir,
This multiplied by
previous
delta y
expression-
delta x. Just a minute. Okay, curl is equal to this multiplied by delta y delta x divided by delta y delta x. That's equal to del f by del x minus x by del y. Yeah. What's it?
Sir, I just wanted to mention that that delta y delta x that has been you just wrote.
Yeah, I've taken care of it now, right? Yeah, I had to, the curl is actually this divided by the area, right? So the area is delta y delta x, so that cancels. Okay, so we can represent curl f as L cross f in Cartesian coordinates. So this becomes 1 I2 I3 L by del x L by del y z. Then I have fx fz. Okay. Any questions?
Sir.
So in Cartesian coordinates, Green's theorem takes the form integral fx dx plus fy dy around a closed loop that's equal to, what did I have for the Green's theorem? Curl f z component of curl f, which is integral del fy by del x del fx by del y dx dy. So this is the Green's theorem in a plane. This is a Stokes theorem in a plane, which is a Green's theorem. Any questions? Hello?
No, sir.
Okay, so what I have done is I have done vector calculus. I'm not going to spend more time on this one. And then next, from next lecture onwards, I will start talking about vector spaces, Euclidean vector spaces. Okay, and I'll show you why just having the 3 components for a to specify the position of an object is not enough. Okay. When the object has a complex space, shape, then you really have to have many more coordinates to specify the shape. Okay.
Sir, all
Any
of what
questions?
you have Sir, all of what you have discussed today, divergence and curl will filed in Kreyszig, na?
Oh, okay. You won't find it in Kreyszig everything. Okay. Because
Sir, in
Kreyszig does not
about
give you a physical. I'll tell you the reference. So the place to look at is Berkeley. Berkeley Physics course. Electricity and magnetism. Is volume 2. Okay. This is by E.M. Purcell. How many of you have heard of the name of E.M. Purcell?
No,
Huh? Have you heard of Purcell?
no, sir.
No? You know, he's one of the persons who discovered NMR.
Okay, sir.
Always losing the files that I'm writing because for some reason it is not saving. Gee. Unexpected. Okay, so Purcell, Pound, and Felix Bloch, these were the three people who got Nobel Prize together. Purcell and Pound were the persons who did the NMR by, I think, it was probably induction coil. I'm not sure. I think Bloch was induction coil, and these people were using a circuit breaker. You know, forget the exact technique. But Purcell was the person who actually discovered, one of the persons who first observed nuclear magnetic resonance. And this book, Electricity and Magnetism by Purcell, is one of the best books that you can get in basic electricity and magnetism. It's a fantastic book. Okay, so, and I think it's also available in cheap edition, you can buy it. Okay, so I'll stop here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, bye then. Okay, so we will meet again on Monday. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.